Let's come over to Dr. Chigundu. Dr. Chigundu, are the scientists illegally making GMOs in Uganda?
No.
Are you sure about that? Well, it has been mentioned by more than one person.
Research in Uganda is regulated by the Uganda National Council for Science and Technology. Yes. They regulate research, especially that has got ethical, reasons. They regulate research on developing vaccines for HIV so that HIV can be tested on people and these types of regulated science activities. And they are regulating all the research that we're undertaking in Naro to develop varieties that are suitable for the Ugandan farmer. Agriculture is complex.
What law are they using to make these?
They have the Uganda National Council for Science and Technology Statute of 1991. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention that agriculture is unfortunately a very complex area. Honorable told us the story of his visit to South Africa and said he told us the story of maize. But then there's a whole story of bananas, matoke.
And I know that you're also developing something
which are very important to Uganda. And if Uganda doesn't do any research on matoke, nobody in the world will do it. That is why China does research on rice, because it is theirs. Yes, matoke is ours. If we don't secure it, if we don't secure it with the science that we have as Ugandans, so that we can feed our own with what our own love and value and treasure, and then we really don't have a nation to talk about. We've been educated by Ugandans. We are Ugandans. So what is the science in our heads for if we cannot use it to secure the harvest of matoke?
Okay, let's ask Dr.
Matoke has nothing to do with seed, to do with seed patches, with seed cells, with Monsanto. Nothing. It is Uganda. It is Uganda.
Okay, Dr. Olupot, are you already developing GMOs in Uganda?
Yeah, it is ongoing illegally, as Morrison Rakakamba said.
Why do you say illegally? Because, for example, you teach in the School of Agriculture at Makerere University.
And why haven't you gone to the police?
Why haven't you gone to the police or something like that?
I mean, that is why the debate is ongoing. The Cartagena Protocol sets 5 minimum standards for introduction of GM activities in any country, including a policy framework. If you look at this policy framework, it was an agenda between NARO, Uganda National Council for Science and Technology, and what else. These are doubling both as the promoters of the technology as well as the regulators. So how can you be a judge in your own case? The policy provided for introduction of what they call confined field trials in Kasese, in Serere, in Namulonge, in Kawanda, and I ask them, how confined are these trials? Did that policy pass through the necessary scrutiny? It's actually unfortunate that we are debating the bill. If I had gotten to know about the policy earlier with the other team, I think we would be debating the policy, because that is the first minimum standard before we would go to the regulation. So GM activities, in my view, are taking place illegally, and I want the law to provide for action to be taken against the scientists who introduced this material.
Maybe to support what you said.
Okay. All right, very quickly. Make your comment very quickly, so that we have to go back to the audience.
When we went to the UK,
yes,
we found that before even you do confined field trials, there should be a law that is called the pre-release law that allows you even to use our soil to try GMO. But we don't have that law in Uganda. Why? Who allowed them to release GMO into our country before even we talk about it being confined? That pre-release law is not there.
Okay, Honorable Bua, you said we needed the law because tests were taking place and all kinds of things we needed to regulate and what have you. Why didn't you start with this law that Honorable Anwarach is talking about?
I think that question should have been answered best by the authors of the bill, and that is government of Uganda. Because you see, democracy entails that from the executive it comes to parliament. That question should have been answered preferably by the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic
Honorable,
Development.
at the beginning of this show, you told us that what happens first is you ratify an international convention.
Government
Then afterwards you come with a policy. Afterwards you come up with enabling law.
Exactly.
There's a process through which it goes, right? Now, if tests are taking place, they've told you to come up with a law to enable something, but there is no law for the test taking place. Don't you tell them we should first do this before we come to this?
I think the issue of the test, I want to put it emphatically clear, that what is currently happening stops at research. And that research, when you read the National Council for Science and Technology Act, it gives them powers to grant that waiver for research. And it stops there. That is why you hear, after that confined field trials, you have to destroy that particular product. What is the missing link is that enabling legislative framework for release. That is why the scientists, even at Namolonge, cannot conduct their research and release. There is no law governing release into the market, whether it is for consumption, that banana or that maize in Kasese, they cannot release it. After planting, you must cut them, destroy them, and that is where it stops. So this law, if passed, God forbid, will now give them, the scientists, an opportunity to go through the research and also release into the market, because as we speak, you cannot release any GM product in Uganda. Legally, you cannot.
Okay,
but in terms of research,
yes,
you can conduct research when you get permission from the National Council for Science and Technology using their act.
Okay, I see very many hands in the audience. Let me go over to Agnes Chirabo.
Doctor tells us that...
which doctor? I have
Dr.
two.
Chigundu.
Yes, Dr. Chigundu.
Dr. Chigundu is saying, let's not talk about maize, let's talk about banana, where no royalties will be required, where you don't need to pay for patents and all that.
He just decided to talk about bananas because he's more close to bananas.
Clarify.
But Gabriel,
no, it's okay.
But
please.
Gabriel, when you understand what was passed within the Plant Varieties Protections Bill, even the banana that Dr. Chigundu is talking about, we shall not be free. Because the Plant Varieties Protections Bill defines a breeder beyond Dr. Chigundu, who is speaking here with a lot of passion. The bill defines, it is going to be an act now, was defining a breeder to also include the institution where Dr. Chigundu is working. Do you see his passion being eroded away? But it also goes ahead and defines the breeder who is going to go and apply for rights of that banana doctor to also include whoever funded Dr. Chigundu to do that research. Now the question is, how much of our budget, our taxpayers' money, pays Dr. Chigundu to do that research? For me to have the guarantee that actually Dr. Chigundu is there working for me. So I think we need to look at these laws. And
are you saying Dr. Chigundu, all the scientists are working for somebody else and not the Ugandans?
With all the due, sorry?
Are you saying that the scientists are currently working for somebody else?
I have said go into the Plant Varieties Protections Bill and look at the definition of a breeder. It goes beyond Dr. For instance, Chigundu, a Muganda who is working on banana, to also include who gave him money to do that research.
Okay, thank you very much, Agnes. We have to take a break right now. You're watching our parliament. We'll be back after the break.